When it comes to food, there are special treats, there are everyday meals, and then there's bread. Even when you look at the almost endless array of dishes humans are capable of making, bread is in a category all its own. As the foundation of sandwiches, it is portable and versatile, going from sweet to savory to spicy in a blink. It is as good with soup, stews, and curries as it is with a little butter. And it is a crucial part of many religious and cultural ceremonies, moments where a particular bread made a certain way carries deep meaning and significance. In fact, every country on the planet has some tradition of bread making. And even though the basic ingredients barely change, the results can be stunningly different. So, is there a simple way to answer the question, how is bread made? We're pretty sure we can rise to the challenge, right now on OWL Connected's General Knowledge. In the most basic sense, bread requires two things: flour and water. That's it. Mix these two things together in the proper ratio or amounts, and you will get a dough. Throw that dough inside an oven and bake it, and you will get bread. Of course, the result might not be exactly what you're picturing when you imagine bread. That's because this is a recipe for unleavened bread, or bread that doesn't rise. So, rather than soft and pillowy, you get flat. Unleavened breads are quite a delicious thing to pair with dips, toppings, or fillings. For example, the tortilla is a flatbread that has its origins in Mesoamerica. Did someone say tacos? But if we're being honest, if we're talking about actually baking bread, we're thinking about something with a little more pop to it. And to get that, we're going to have to add a few more ingredients. Salt is good. And though not essential, a little oil can help too. But what we really need is a leavening agent: yeast. Yeast is basically a tiny fungus, and it's super hungry. Add it to a dough, and it starts going to work. The yeast munches away at the sugars found within the flour. This is a process called fermentation. Fermentation creates carbon dioxide, or CO2, inside the dough, which quickly finds out that it's trapped. It can't escape. But the dough, which is stretchy and elastic, can expand to accommodate the extra CO2. The dough rises. Another important part of this equation is the knead to knead. Kneading is the act of pulling, pushing, and stretching the dough for about 10 minutes. This process activates and connects the gluten inside the flour. These strands of protein are what allow the dough to stretch and create all those homes for that CO2 gas to live in. Now you get why professional bakers need to get up so early in the morning to give you freshly baked bread. After mixing and kneading, the dough then needs to proof, or be given time to rise, before it is baked. Generally, proofing allows the ball of dough to expand to between 2 to 3 times its original size. After the proofing is done, it is finally time to bake the bread. Now, this process probably doesn't seem all that mysterious. You take the dough, you put it in the oven, you bake it. Hey, who's hungry? But while most bread is baked at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, different baking temperatures can change the type of bread that you get. For example, a much hotter oven, one at around 450 degrees Fahrenheit, will provide bread like sourdough with a terrific, dark, crunchy crust. Sometimes the oven temperature will even be changed midway through so that the crust is perfectly crisp, but never burnt. And speaking of other types of bread, the ingredients that go into a loaf can go far beyond flour, water, salt, and yeast. Sugar is added to some breads to give the yeast more to munch on during fermentation. And then there's the king of fermentation, sourdough, which instead of bread yeast uses something called a sourdough starter. This is a live culture of tangy bacteria and wild yeasts that literally lives in a container in your fridge. All you have to do is feed it with flour and water about once a week, and it will always be there waiting to be used in the next loaf. Fats, like olive oil or butter, create a richer dough that bakes into a denser loaf. This is also true of egg breads like brioche or challah, which have a distinct yellow color and chewy softness. And then there are the flours. Wheat is easily the most common type of flour used in bread, which makes up white or whole wheat flour. But you can also make bread with oat flour, rye, spelt, corn flour, and even gluten-free flours for people who can't digest gluten. And the possibilities don't end there either. Olives, nuts, seeds, grated cheese, spices, raisins, milk, all of these things can be added to a bread to give it a distinct character. And that's probably why it remains so exciting to us. Pretty much every meal has space in it for bread. So, are you practically running to a bakery right now? Or maybe you're asking an adult to help you on your latest baking creation. We feel pretty inspired too, and there's more where that came from. Simply click on the button and subscribe below, and you'll never miss another episode of OWL Connected's General Knowledge.